Hello everyone, I'm Caitlin from MCTAC, and I'd like to thank you for joining us today for the Children's Health Home Transitional Billing Process webinar. Before we get started, I'm just going to go through a few logistics. First of all, slides for this presentation and the recording will be posted to ctacny.org. We encourage you to submit questions through the chat throughout the webinar, and we will be addressing questions at the end. If the chat is not already viewable on your right side panel, you can access it by hitting the little thought bubble on the bottom of your screen. And please chat all questions to all panelists. Additionally, as always, information and timelines are current as of the day of this webinar. And with that, I'm going to pass the presentation over to Donna Cater, who's going to get us started.
Okay, good afternoon. We're just going to start with the agenda, and we're going to go through a quick timeline. And again, I want to reiterate what was already said, that this timeline is as of today. Transitional rate overview, billing overview, transitional rate codes and rates, and billing examples. I think I'm a visual person and examples help. And then we'll do a quick Q&A. So the timeline for the key activities are the children enrolled in the 1915C waivers, which, as you all know, are the B2H, the SED, the Care at Home 4, and the Care at Home 1 and 2. Those children, and I already made a mistake because the OPWDD children are not transitioning to Health Home. They've already transitioned, so it's just the B2H, SED, and the Care at Home 1 and 2. So that happened on January 1st. Phase 1, using transitional rates, happens on January 1st. Phase 2, which is July through December 31. Phase 3 begins January 1st of 2020, and Phase 4 begins July 1st of 2020. And then there will no longer be transitional rates as of January 1st, 2021. The overview of the transitional rates, I'm going to pass that over to Gwen. Is that where I'm passing it to? No? Okay. Sorry. Transitional rate overview. The Health Home transitional rates were designed to help OMH SED waiver and OCFS B2H 1915C waivers providers transition down to the Health Home rate. Because as you will recall, the rates in the OMH SED waiver and the OCFS B2H waiver, those rates for ICC and HCI are around $1,200, so we need to transition them down to ensure proper access. The transitional rates do not apply to the 1915C transitioning waivers of DOH or OPWDD Care at Home, and that's what I was just mentioning when I made my first mistake. It doesn't apply to OPWDD or DOH Care at Home. If a provider manages multiple waivers, only children transitioning from the OMH SED waiver or the OCFS B2H waiver transitioning to Health Home Care Management Services count toward a transitional rate. The next slide, transitional rates are effective for 2 years, the January 1 through 12/31, 2020, and they begin. And then beginning on 1/1/21, only the Health Home rate codes will be used. So the way this is set up is during the transition period, you will be billing 2 separate rate codes. So for 2 years, you'll be billing 2 separate rate codes. Beginning 1/1/21, you will only be billing the 1 Health Home rate code. Transitional rates step down gradually to the Health Home rates using 4 phases. And we'll show you in slide 5 what we're talking about. This gradual decline assists the providers with maintaining fiscal viability during the transition period. Transitional rates are not attached to specific children. That is very important that you realize that a transitional rate is not attached to a specific person, but rather to the approved number of transitional rate slots. Now I know that that there's going to be questions on that line, but You just have to know it's not attached to children, because children come and go out of these waivers quite often, and so it would not be fair to a provider, and that's what that bullet is in there for. In the coming weeks, providers will receive a letter from the Department of Health indicating the number of potential transitional rate slots. The provider will be able to bill monthly. That letter has not gone out yet, but it will be coming shortly. Date of service for billing. Currently, OCF, this is a confusing slide. This took us a long time here to understand, and it's because you're combining 3 waivers that have all different rules of billing. And so we needed to wrap our heads around how this was going to work for combining these waivers. So the current rules, the dates of service for billing. So currently OCFS B2H HCI is billed using the first day of the following month as the claim date of service. For example, if HCI services are provided in January, the HCI claim will use a February 1st date of service. So if you provide a service, you are an OCFS B2H HCI provider, and you provide a service on January 15th, your current process is to use the date of service February 1st. Currently for OMH's SED, ICC is billed using the last day of the month as the date of service. For example, if ICC services are provided in January, the HCI claim, I apologize, if ICC services are provided in January, the ICC claim will use a January 31st date of service. So if a service was provided for OMH, SED, ICC on the 15th of January, the date of service that would show up on that claim is January 31st. Health homes currently and in the future will be using the first day of the month as the date of service for services provided during that month. So to keep our examples the same, if a health home provider provides service during January, the date of service on the claim will be January 1. So that means if a health home service is provided on January 15th, even though they provided the service on January 15th, their date of service that they billed for is January 1st. The transitional rates. The transitional rates will be billed using the same billing rules as health home. When a health home service is provided in January, the care management agency will bill the transitional rate with a date of service of January 1. So in order to get your transitional rate billing for the month of January, if you provided health home services on January 15th, you will bill the health home rate code with a date of service January 1 and the transitional rate code with a date of service of January 1. So the second slide, as far as the dates of service, this is just another example of a scenario where a waiver child, and I just went over these, but a waiver child, I think it's really important, so I'm going to do it again. A waiver child gets moves to health home in January and receives the necessary health home core services to allow for health home billing on January 15th. The health home bills with a January 1 date of service, whether it was high, medium, or low, based on the CANS New York acuity. The waiver case management provider has the discretion to determine which of their January health home children will receive the transitional rate. So again, remember in the other slide, I said these transitional billings are not attached to a specific child. So the waiver case management provider can choose which children they will receive the transitional rate for. They bill the transitional rate for that child based on the same level. So that means that if you are providing health home services to Susan Smith, and Susan Smith is a medium based on her CAMS New York acuity, and you choose to bill Susan Smith transition, she also needs to bill at the medium level. You can't mix and match your, if you serve all high individuals, you can't then say, okay, I'm gonna choose transition lows. Or you can't, if you serve all mediums, you can't then choose some highs and some lows and some mediums. They all need to match, the kids need to match, the transition and their health home billing needs to match, whether they are high, medium, and low. But it is your choice if you have more children that you are serving than what the letter that you get says that you can bill for, and we're going to give you examples of that. You can choose which children. You just have to be able to bill their health home and their transition rate at the same level. There is no case management claim attributable to January. However, if the child received B2H HCI case management in December, the case management provider will bill December's B2H case management with a January 1 date of service. Now that is a different rate code than the health homes. It is a different rate code than the transition. So yes, you will bill Susan Smith's health home at the health home rate code, and you will bill Susan Smith's health home at the transition rate code, and you could possibly be billing Susan Smith's December services for B2H HCI in January, all on the first day of the month with 3 separate rate codes. That is a very confusing concept. And we have more that displays it, and hopefully it gets clearer. So don't type your questions yet until we get to the display. If the child received OMH SED ICC case management in December, that service is billed under yet a separate rate code, but that date of service remains December 31st. So if Susan Smith is actually in OMH's SED ICC, she would have a January 1 health home billing, she would have a January 1 transition rate code billing, and she would have a December 31st ICC rate code billing. So those 3 would not all fall on the same day, which is different from the SED. Oh, now I have a thing in front of me that says I'm going to pass this over to Gwen to talk about the next part of the billing.
Thanks. So the next slides are regarding the submission of the claims. In instances where 1915C care management providers have converted to or become part of a health home, the health home will bill the health home rate codes based on the child's acuity score, which we've gone over already, and the former HCI ICC provider, using the existing waiver provider and NPI and MIS IDs, will also submit a supplemental claim to fee-for-service. So these are fee-for-service claims only for the transitional rate code, and it will coincide, as Donna already said, with the child's CAMS acuity score, high, medium, or low. We need to note that the transitional rate code may only be billed when the health home core requirements have been met. And again, this is important that the transitional rate codes are carved out of managed care, and they'll always be billed fee-for-service. We are going to load the rates to eMedNE using the current 1915C provider information, the NPIs at +4. And again, the transitional rate codes will be billed using the first day of the service month as the date of service, which is the same as health home. And providers will use procedure code P2022, which is case management per month on the claims. That's what we use for the SED ICC. I'm not sure if that's the case right now for the HCI, but going forward, it should be P2022. Okay. The provider transition rates are regional, downstate and upstate, and these rates will match the health home regions, so the rate codes will be the same. And for the health homes, downstate is New York City, Nassau, Suffolk, Dutchess, Rockland, Westchester, Putnam, and Orange, and upstate is all other counties. However, we noticed when we were setting up these rates that the health home downstate region includes 3 counties, Dutchess, Putnam, and Orange, that are considered upstate for both C2H and SED waivers. So during phase 1, the 3 counties will have a separate transitional rate, and you'll see that on the following 2 slides. And after phase 1, the 3 counties will receive the downstate transitional rate.
So that's important to when you're thinking about this too. And the reason that is because when this was presented to CMS, and in the beginning of these slides, I said this was to transition providers from what they're currently receiving to a lower amount. And in order to have continuity of care, we needed to not give those 3 counties, if we were to transition those 3 counties using the upstate and downstate, those 3 counties would have received more for a little while, and then the drop-off would have been higher, and it would not have been consistent with what our final outcome wanted to be. And that outcome was that we wanted to ensure a smooth transition down. So going up and coming back down did not make any sense. That's why we needed that third region the third region, I'm saying, but for those 3 counties, they needed to have their own transition for phase 1. After phase 1, because we're not targeting what you're currently being reimbursed, there was no need to continue that phase in that manner. So that was the difference in the transition. So let me talk through these charts that I get many people, and I even get people from here saying to me, oh, I think you did this wrong. I think these are listed wrong. Because I think what's confusing to people is that everything under the left-hand side of these charts stays consistent. It's the things on the right-hand side of the chart that need to change. And the other thing that confuses people is that why would someone who is low, based on their CANs and their acuity, why would their transition rate be higher than someone who is high? And that's what's confusing to a lot of people. They go, nope, you did it wrong, you've got it flipped, it shouldn't be this way. But it's right, I assure you, and the reason is because you're transitioning down from a flat rate, a $1,200 rate, or $773, and you're transitioning down to a higher number if you are someone that receives the high level. So if you're transitioning from a higher number down to a higher number, it would stand to reason that you only need a smaller amount in your transition. If you are transitioning from 1173 down to 225, That's a difference of $933. So in the first phase, you need to get $933 to make you whole, and then you would transition down from there. So the way this chart works is you'll see on the top right-hand side, and the top one is SED, and the bottom one, slide 15, is SED, and slide 16 is B2H. They're set up identical. On the top right-hand side, you'll see what is currently being paid in SED's waiver, 1915C waiver, for upstate and for downstate. And you'll see what the current health home rates are in that same box for high, medium, and low for upstate and for downstate. So then the January 1, 2019, if you're coming down the chart, those health home rates are identical to what's above them, but the transition rates are what you need to get you to what the rates above it are that are currently in the 1915C. So if you are serving a child who is assessed at a medium and you are downstate, you are currently receiving, if you are currently serving them, you are currently receiving $1,232. They were assessed at a medium, and you will get $479 when you build the health home rate code, and then you will build the transition rate code, and you will get $753. And you will bill those same rate codes for 6 months. The health home rate code, you'll get $479, and then the transition rate code, you'll get your $753, and that gives you your $1,232. After phase 1 is over, beginning July 1 of 2019, so for the first 6 months, you're held harmless. Beginning July 1 of 2019, that same child is going to build a health home rate code and get $479, which is what they've been getting since they started health homes. But they will then build a transition rate code, and instead of getting $753, they will now be getting $565. So they are transitioning down some. And then what's not on this chart, if I just jump to January 1 of 2021, the right-hand side of the chart goes away, and for that same child, you will bill the health home rate code on January 1, because we know we do it on the first. The data service is the first of the month, so on January 1 of 2021, you will bill that same child, and you will receive $479, and there will be no longer a transition payment. And B2H is exactly the same. I don't think I need to go through it, but it's exactly the same. The reason that there are separate rate codes is because you can see that the current 1915C for SED and for B2H are not the same. So if we go to billing examples, I told you in the beginning of this, and any of you who know me know I'm a visual person, and I need to have a visual to try and understand what all of this means, because words on paper, not always my favorite thing. So here we have the first example, and in the first example, in April of 2019, provider A has 15 children enrolled in their health home. All 15 children have health home claim due to meeting the health home monthly core requirements. Only 10 potential transitional rates can be billed for the month of April. Provider A was allocated those 10 transitional rate slots when they received their letter from the Department of Health telling them how many they had, and that number doesn't waver over the 2 years of the transition. And after 3 months, the provider A now has 18 children enrolled in health home, meeting the health home monthly core requirements, provider can still only bill 10 transitional rates based on their allocated number of transitions. So example 1, where there were 15 children, you'll see my 15 people, my 15 children on the left-hand side, and you'll see health home on the far left. Those are my 15 children, but because I received a letter that said I could only bill 10 of them, 10 of them, I have 10 transitions. They can be any, it can be any mix, 3 high, 4 medium, 3 low in my scenario. In either scenario, the provider has the discretion to choose which of their children they prefer to bill the transition for. But again, they have to match. In the second bullet, the example is now I have 18 children. There's my 18 children up at the top, and they bill all 18 of them to health home, but only 10 of them can be billed to transition. So they bill all 10. And they are medium 2 or high 2, medium 4, and low 4. So they have the choice when those 18 children are billed to health home. On the next slide, the first bullet is, in August of 2019, provider A has 10 children enrolled in health home. All 10 children have a health home claim due to meeting health home monthly core requirements. All 10 potential transitional rates can be billed for the month of August based on the provider's allocated number of transitional rate slots that came in a letter from the Department of Health. So they bill 10 health home and they bill 10 transition, my people on the left. Two happened to be high, 4 were medium, and 4 were low. After 3 months, provider A's enrollment has decreased to 9 children who meet the health home monthly core requirements. The provider can only bill 9 transitional rate slots that month. So even if we sent you a letter and said, hey, you get 10, you don't get 10 unless you have a child that also received a health home service. So the 2 numbers in this scenario are both 9. 3 high, 3 medium, 3 low. So those are 2 different scenarios and 2 different examples of what you may run into. You may run into, as I said on slide 18, you may run into where you have more children, but you can still only bill the amount of transitional slots that you were given. And on this slide, you may have less children than the number of slots you were given, but you can still only bill the number received, that received the service. Monitoring. So this is a 2-year transition, and we know that it's very difficult to have eMedNI checking all of these things, and we know it's hard to get evolution projects through eMedNI, and since this is only 2 years, we're going to be doing the monitoring internally. So we are going to monitor the transitional rate codes by running health home acuity monthly billing against the monthly transition rate billing to make sure that there are 2. They must have the same health home and transition acuity billed for them in both rate codes. This information will be compared against the number of monthly transitional rates allotted to each provider in the letter that you'll be receiving from the Department of Health. So that's to make sure that if you were given 10 slots that you are serving 18 children, as in one of my first examples, that you didn't bill 18 transitional slots because you don't have the right to those. So I think that goes through all the slides that we wanted to show you. So the resources and links, Boris, do you want to go through those?
Good afternoon, this is Yvette. I will review some of the resources. First, let me say thank you to the presenters. And while you're taking a minute to get organized around some of the questions that came in, I just want to remind folks that we have a number of resources regarding the children's transition on our website, mctac.org. So I'm just going to encourage you to take a look at that should you have any other additional questions about things that are happening with the transition. Additionally, if you have any questions or complaints related to this webinar or billing and payment, they should be directed as followed to the specific mailbox that you see here listed on your screen. Again, just make note that if it relates to a specific topic such as health home or OMH SED waiver, to send the question directly to that particular mailbox. Lastly, just want to encourage everyone, if you have not done so already, to sign up for a number of the listservs that are available. You see some here on the screen. It really does help to kind of keep you informed and be aware of some of the upcoming offerings. We will be having more information, more webinars related to the children's transition. And so again, want to just encourage that you sign up so that you are aware. And with that, I'm just going to turn it over to our state partners to begin to review some of the questions that we received.
So this is Donna Cater. So we have some questions. We have Colette with us, and we have Tanya with us. And some of the questions are my questions, and some of them are Colette's. So I think we're going to start with, I think we have 2 or 3 for Colette right off the top. So Tanya, do you want to read them out loud?
Sure. The first is a clarification. You're saying OCFS SED waiver. Does that mean B2HDD and MedFrag waivers aren't included? That's a Donna question or Colette.
Go ahead.
Right. So this is pertaining to all 3 B2H waivers, right? So the SED, B2H waiver, the DD, and the MedFrag waiver, so as well as the OMH SED. So yes, it pertains to all 3 of the B2H waivers, this transitional rate. And we just want folks to be really clear that you only get the transitional rate once you transition your child to health home, and then you have done the core service or the requirement for health home to be able to bill for the health home payment, and then you can bill the subsequent transitional rate based on the CANS acuity and has Donna outlined for you.
And to jump off of that, because I didn't see exactly what the question said, so I am just going to jump in. Colette said this does apply to the 3 B2H waivers. This does not apply to OPWDD's Care at Home 4. They are part of our consolidated waiver, if you will, but they are not part of this transition because they don't currently receive HCI or ICC. These transitions are for HCI and ICC, so it has nothing to do with OPWDD's kids.
So there's a question regarding, I think, again, a clarification when Donna had her little people there as her example, a nice visual, I think that was helpful. The question is about choosing any health home child. It would be any health home child in waiver, right? So we know that some of the providers are out there are already health home care management agencies as well as doing waiver services. So it would have to be a waiver child that has transitioned to health home, right? And you have a CANS acuity, and now you're billing the transitional rate based on a transitioning child. So what you can do is pick one of the transitioning children. We're not saying that the transitional rate, as Donna mentioned, is tied to a particular child that transitions, because we know that some children may be discharged over time, over the 2 years, and you may get a new child, so you don't want to lose a potential transitional rate.
So will the health home payment come from health home and transitional from Medicaid or Medicaid managed care? So you can just clarify where the transition payment is paid to.
So go ahead. The transition rate is paid Medicaid fee-for-service only, and the former waiver provider will submit that claim.
And the health home rate is through your health home, right? So every health home has some kind of IT platform, and they have training for you of how they bill for the health home rate based on you completing your monthly billing questionnaire and your core service verification.
So the next question is, when a youth moves from B2H from health home, are they being discharged from B2H, which would allow us to bill on the last day of HCI service?
So I just want to be really clear. We're saying that the child's not technically discharged because you're not discharging them from waiver services. You're just transitioning to health home. So, and you're getting ready, right, for April 1, which is the consolidated children's waiver. So during January 1st and through March 31st, your B2H waiver in OMH's SED waiver is still intact, is still operational, it's still open for business, so to speak, until 4/1 when the children's waiver is in effect. So the B2H waiver is still in effect. You are not discharging them. You're transitioning the care coordination piece, the HCI and the ICC piece, to health home care management.
So I think what they're asking is, if partway through January, the kid finally enrolls in the health home, so do we know that the health home is going to bill January 1 date? We know there's going to be a transitional claim January 1 date, but does that provider also get to bill for their HCI or ICC?
No, they do not. You can't double bill. We have lots of, that was in our previous PowerPoints, our in-person trainings, as well as documents that are out there. The month in which you transition the child to health home, even if it's the last day of the month, because health home is a PMPM, a per member per month, you get the whole health home rate for the whole month, so you cannot bill your waiver rate. So the month you transition your child to health home, you will bill the health home rate through the lead health home that you're working with, and then you will bill your transitional rate based on the charts that were reviewed, fee for service. The provider does that direct billing. So that's a good clarification.
So one of the next ones I have is, and we're only going to answer a few questions here, and then we will get all these questions, write up answers, and get them out to MCTAC to post with the WebEx and with the PowerPoints. But one question I have is, you say you can choose which child in the health home to bill a transitional rate code for the youth. You mean any child receiving HCBS, not a health home client who is not receiving HCBS, correct? And that is exactly what Colette just described, is that it is not a child that is in the health home currently. It is a child that has transitioned from HCI or ICC to health home. You can choose any of those children.
Or a kid who's new to your waiver. If there's a kid who's new to the consolidated waiver after 4/1, and you've lost other kids, you could bill that kid for the transitional rate as long as you don't leave.
Right, because as 4/1, everybody's in health home, right? Yeah. So it wouldn't matter.
So that's a good point. So it doesn't attach to the child. So if you started with 10 children and you transitioned them on February 1st, and they received their health home services, those 10 children on February 1st, you bill those on February 1st. The next month, 5 of those children are gone, but you got in 5 different children. Those 5 different children, plus your original 5 to make 10, you can bill all those 10 health home, and you can bill those 5 new kids for the transition too, because it's within your 10 slot limit. Your 10 slot limit that you received in your letter. So it's not attached to the child, it's attached to the numbers that you can bill, and it's attached to whether they are new or whether they were in HCBS, not current health home children.
Right, and as another example, I would just say, because I know providers are slowly transitioning their kids, so if you have those 10 kids that Donna mentioned, and you only transitioned in January 5 of them, then you could only bill 5 transitional rates, right? Because for the other 5, you're billing your current rate, waiver rate, which is the total amount that was on the chart, right? So remember, the point of these transitional rates are to make you whole when you're billing health home. So the health home rate is lower. So when you're billing health home for a child, then you need the transitional rate to make you whole for what you're doing. If you're currently have not transitioned a child, you're billing your current waiver rate, then you will not bill a transitional rate, right? So over this 3-month period, every month might be a little different depending on how you're transitioning your children. And I just also want to be really clear, the health home process for billing is exactly the same. We are not changing that in any way. You will bill the health home through the MAP referral portal or the Lead Health Home platform. You'll complete your monthly billing questionnaire as required. And health home billing is not changed at all. Your transitional rate, however, the waiver provider will bill directly fee for service.
So I'm going to read this one question. It's the same answer that we went over, but there are 4 or 5 or 6 all worded a little differently, and I think this is a really important concept. The transitional rates are going for 2 years. It's unlikely that youth who are transitioning to Health home, okay, transitioning to health home from waiver today may not be in health home 2 years from now. Again, this doesn't attach to the children. It attaches to new children coming in to your health home or children that have transitioned from HCBS. So you may not have any children in 2 years that transitioned from HCBS because they may have come and gone, but you still will have new children filling in behind them that you didn't serve in the health home at the time of transition. So there still should be, unless
you stop serving
HCBS kids, but we don't see that happening. And we will definitely put that in writing and make sure that we clarify that one, because I think that's a bulk of these is the real confusion. And I hope the people on the page help to clarify that it's not attached to a child. It's really attached to the funding, if you want to look at it that way.
Yeah, and so one of the other questions is about the letter or the number of transitional rates a provider will get. So we're hoping to get those letters out in the next week. We're looking, in the letter will say our methodology. We're looking at the number of slots providers have today and how many slots have been filled over the last 18 months, so that folks know. We have a couple little nuances with our methodology because some providers are no longer moving forward and some providers have picked up some other slots from other folks. So essentially you'll get a letter that says the number of potential transitional rates that you can bill in a particular month. So as Donna mentioned, if you potentially have 10, then as you transition your kids to health home, you will start billing those transitional rates if you also have a health home bill. So if you transition 6 children in January, then you will only be able to bill 6 transitional rates because those 4 other children are still currently in your existing waiver, and you're billing the existing waiver rate. So you will get the money that you already have been getting. For the other 6 kids, you'll bill the transitional rate so you get up to that money so it makes you whole. And then when you transition the other 4 kids in February, now you potentially can bill all 10 children through health home and all 10 children with your transitional rate. So between these 3 months of transition, it may vary depending on how many kids you have and how many kids you're transitioning to health home. But come 4/1, as Donna mentioned, all your kids would be transitioned. So hopefully you would be billing all your transitional rates. And as kids come and go out of your HCBS waiver and your services, then again, you look at all the kids, 10 kids, you find 10 kids who are in HCBS and in your health home care management, and you bill for those 10 kids. If you have more than that, that's fine. And if you have less, then you can only bill what you have in your HCBS waiver. I think if you have time to look over the slides and see the answers to the questions, it will start to make it will make more sense to folks. That's a good one.
All right, so just wanted to check in to see if there's any more questions that you guys would like to answer. Otherwise, we will wind down the webinar. Are you guys all set?
So I'm just going to answer one more question, and then we'll be done. The question is, you want to read the question?
Sure. It says for billing for date of service 1/1/2019, until when can we submit a bill? What's the latest billing date?
So that's standard practice in everywhere, in every service, in everything. There's 90 days. You have 90 days to bill something for a date of service. So January 1st, you can bill for the month January, February, and March. April 1st, you won't be able to bill the date of service any longer, and the system will shut it down at that point. It's not an edit. It's an edit that's already in place, and it's been in place for a very long time. So you have 90 days to bill for services.
And then Colette will answer the question on, will the assigned DOH transition staff be able to be a live resource until the 2021 transitional period ends? I can envision them needing to check in each month about whether they are billing correctly. So looks like somebody's asking for continued support during the transition billing period.
Yeah, so each transitioning provider has a DOH liaison, and through these 3 months, we'll be talking to you on a regular basis, right, tracking all the children and ensuring they get transitioned properly. And so if you want to, just verify who you should be billing for and those types of things, then the staff can be a resource for you. And then beyond April 1st, again, we're going to be trying to help you all out and hold your hand a bit. So we won't just let you go on March 31st. And, if you need some assistance, we're here to support, as well as I know OMH and OCFS. You can call or contact those waiver staff, and they can also assist you. So you have plenty of support if you're concerned and you want to make sure you're billing correctly.
So that's the last question.
Yep. Great. So first of all, let me thank our state presenters for walking us through some pretty complex information. Just as a reminder, the slides will be made available, and you can find them on our website, mctac.org, probably within a couple days. And also just want to encourage you to make sure you sign up for our listserv. There will be other trainings that we'll be announcing regarding this health home transition. And with that, I hope you guys have a good rest of your day, and thank you.